Good morning, another session, and it's starting to look a little bit sunny outside. Welcome back to good weather. Today we will have Razna Choudhury, who is Assistant Head and also Director of Maths at Chiltern Learning Trust. She's based in Denby High School in Luton, and she'll be looking at how to create a whole school maths culture. So we'll be looking at aspects of how do we thread that numeracy and the maths throughout schools at curriculum level and within our pastoral and our everyday lives at school. I want to welcome all the new people that are attending today and say hi to a lot of the faces that I'm seeing on there that have joined us in numerous other sessions up until today. If you are on Twitter, or you're thinking about joining, make sure you follow at Chiltern TSA. The hashtag that we are using is at LDeduchat. If you search for either one of those, you'll see the conversations that have been happening about this session and all previous ones as well, and also about important information coming up with to do with other sessions that we've got up until the middle of July. We are not even halfway through our CPD run of sessions, and already we've had so many highlights. So I want to thank all our new followers. I want to thank you for tuning in on a regular basis in the mornings to actually see what we have to offer for you to do with your ongoing continuous professional development. Comment on what you think of our sessions. Tell us where you're from. Be great to see pictures. Pictures are always great to show how you're watching our webinars. We'd like to sort of see where you're from, and so we can help you as much as we can. Feedback and engagement, absolutely important. Without further ado, I am going to start the video, but I am going to just give you a little bit of a heads up. We have at the end of the video, I am going to be posing some questions to you. So Razna's put some quite a lot of thought into this in terms of what she wants you to walk away with. So it'd be really good if you can, at the end of this video, pay attention to the questions that are being asked in terms of a point of reflection on today's session.
Hello everyone, my name is Razna Choudhury, and I'm going to share with you how numeracy across the curriculum has been implemented at Denby High School. There is a main PowerPoint to accompany this presentation, so if you experience any IT issues, don't worry, I will be discussing each of the points. To start off with, I'm going to refer to some quotes from a few years back. In 2013, around about the same time when the maths programme of study were being written, the OECD pointed out that having good numeracy skills was the best protection against unemployment, low wages, and poor health. The Department for Education in 2013 emphasised that math skills should be taught across all curriculum subjects and advised that all teachers should develop pupils' numeracy and mathematical reasoning so they have a better understanding and appreciate the relevance of mathematics within their subject. The SSAT in 2014 pointed out to raise standards in schools, numeracy needs to be seen as a practical capability, enabling pupils to apply their skills and knowledge to solve problems in a whole range of contexts across the school and in real life. What is the difference between numeracy and mathematics? According to the Everyday Maths website, numeracy is the set of math skills that you might use in everyday life and includes the ability to directly relate those skills to real life. Numeracy is very practical, and you'll be using these skills a lot more. Mathematics is more broad and sometimes more theoretical. Numeracy is considered to be the ability to understand mathematical ideas, applying the knowledge obtained into daily life, at home and at work. The National Numeracy website defined numeracy as the ability to use mathematics in everyday life, the ability to use numbers and solve problems in real life. It means having the confidence and skill to use numbers and mathematical approaches in all aspects of life. Numeracy is as important as literacy. Sometimes numeracy is called mathematical literacy. Examples of where you might use numeracy skills include how many euros you will take on holiday given a certain exchange rate, comparing labels in the supermarket to see which product has less sugar per 100 grams, best buys in shops, interpreting graphs and statistics in the newspaper, checking the VAT on an invoice, how many minutes until your train arrives if you are at the train station, budgeting, checking how much you could save if you have a 10% discount. Numeracy means understanding how maths is used in the real life and being able to apply it to make the best possible decision. It's as much about thinking and reasoning as doing sums. It means being able to interpret data, charts and diagrams, process information, solve problems, check answers, understand and explain solutions, make decisions based on logical thinking and reasoning. Think about your subject and where you make links to real life. Could you use numeracy to help pupils understand the connection better? Please feel free to type your thoughts in the question and answer section. At Denby, we inform teachers that all teachers have a responsibility to promote the development of numeracy. All teachers are teachers of literacy and numeracy. It is not just the responsibility of the maths teacher if a pupil is forgotten or is unable to do a maths problem in their subject. For example, say in food technology, pupils are unable to understand proportions relating to a recipe or not being able to convert kilograms to grams. The food technology teacher should check on the prior understanding pupils have with proportion and converting units of measure and revisit and consolidate learning. These topics will be covered in maths, but it may not be at the same time when subjects deliver their curriculum. However, we do try where possible to align schemes of work with other subjects, but this has been difficult. I will discuss later how we, as a maths department, do support teachers with the planning of lessons. If other subject teachers need support with teaching and learning, there is always someone in the maths department to support them. Think about challenges you face in your lessons with respect to numeracy, and I will come back to this, and I would like you to share your thoughts on this later. A few years back, after listening to teachers asking us how we teach a particular topic, say finding a percentage increase of an amount, and people stating they are confused because maths teachers are showing us one method, but in another subject we are shown another way. We then decided to produce a booklet on how we teach certain topics in maths, and we pointed out the differences as well. For example, in maths, the line of best fit is a straight line. However, in science, it is a curve. So yes, there will be some topics that are taught and presented in different ways, which is fine, but it's important that we acknowledge this and pupils are clear on this so that it prevents them being confused later when that topic is taught in a different subject. Learning styles and methods depends on how pupils best learn as individuals. For example, you can use the triangle method if you want to work out the average speed or recall the formula on speed using distance and time. Or you can use the column method or the box method for long multiplication. To promote numeracy within our staff, we have included a numerical puzzle every week in the newsletter, and this has been a current feature to this day. We share the answers to each puzzle the following week. How do you involve your staff? Please share your thoughts on the question and answer section. After listening to pupils and teachers, we realised we needed to address the disparity between the meaning of keywords in subjects across the curriculum to the meaning of that same keyword in math. We therefore focused on the academic language and created posters for all subjects to display in their classrooms. For example, in science, product means a substance produced as a result of a reaction, and in maths, it refers to multiplication. In languages, expand means to elaborate on a piece of writing, whereas in maths, it means to multiply out algebraic brackets. So during lesson times, when keywords were discussed and were applicable, teachers made reference to their meaning in maths and in their subject. All departments produce display boards highlighting numeracy within their subject. The display board you see is in the Support for Learning department, and they identified some of the numeracy they see in the subjects that they support. It's also a good way of celebrating pupils' work if you wish to display pupils' work. We have included in the past cross-curricular projects in our maths lessons with music and substitution and algebra, and PE with graphical interpretation of heart rates. We introduced an approach a few years back on how pupils could answer a mathematical question posed in front of them using BPC. Before reaching for the calculator, we wanted pupils to see if they could work out the answer mentally and if the answer makes sense. If pupils were not able to do the calculation mentally, they could use a pen and paper, whilst being mindful about how sensible the answer is. For example, if working out, say, the area of a rectangle 1.9 centimeters by 2.8 centimeters, the area would be no more than 6 centimeters squared using estimation. So alarm bells should be ringing if you worked out, say, 0.6 centimeters squared or 60 centimeters squared. Or if you were asked to work out 10% of 200, could the answer be 250? Does that even make sense? From the examiner's report, examiners pointed out that pupils wrote answers without thinking about the magnitude of the answer in relation to the question. And finally, if pupils were unable to work out the answer using a pen and paper, then use a calculator. But teachers must ensure pupils know what buttons to press, and if pupils understand the methodology of the calculation. We called this approach brain, pen, and calculator, and emphasized it to pupils to use this approach when answering all numerical questions, regardless of what lesson they were in. We highlighted this method to all teachers and have displayed the BPC posters in all maths classrooms. Now, reflecting on this approach, could you implement something similar in your school? Numeracy assemblies take place regularly. We highlight the importance of maths, why we need it in everyday life. We discuss cross-curricular links to other subjects. We talk about the history of maths and influential figures. In our recent assembly, we spoke about Katherine Johnson and her crucial role in NASA. We talk about careers and how you need maths in certain roles. We point out to pupils they don't all need to be great mathematicians or rocket scientists, but an understanding of the basic principles of day-to-day numeracy and maths will open up many doors for them. However, with these key skills, they can aspire to be anything they wish. We share facts and figures with pupils, such as almost half of the working age population, which is about 17 million of England, have numeracy skills equivalent to those expected of an 11-year-old child, and that in the UK, 20% of the adult population are functionally illiterate, and a third cannot add up 2 or 3-figure numbers. Adults with at least basic numeracy skills can expect to earn a quarter more than those who lack the necessary skills to solve basic mathematical problems. We have mentioned in our assemblies that poor numeracy costs the UK dearly. Research from the pro bono economics estimates poor numeracy skills cost the economy £20.2 billion every year. That cost is borne jointly by individuals, employers, and the public purse. The UK needs a numerate population in order to build a strong economy and compete globally, especially those countries which outstrips us in numeracy performance. I do remind pupils that if they want to work in a global company, they need to bear in mind they will need to be competing with other individuals who may have better numeracy skills than themselves. We also point out there is substantial evidence that low numeracy skills are associated with poor outcomes, and share some hard-hitting facts, such as pupils with poor numeracy skills are more than twice as likely to be unemployed. There is a direct relationship between wage distribution and numeracy skills. Poor numeracy is associated with poor health, according to the OECD. And data from the British cohort studies have shown that there is also a link between depression and poor numeracy. Children with social, emotional, and behavioral difficulties are more likely to struggle with numeracy, even taking into account factors such as home background and general ability. The next three surprised them. Pupils beginning secondary school with very low numeracy skills but good literacy skills have an exclusion rate twice that of pupils starting secondary school with good numeracy skills. 14-year-olds who have poor math skills at 11 are more than twice as likely to play truant. A quarter of young people in custody have a numeracy level below that expected of a 7-year-old, and 65% of adult prisoners have numeracy skills at or below the level expected of an 11-year-old. I was surprised with that one. Does your school deliver numeracy assemblies? If so, great. If not, maybe it's something you could implement. So during form time for Key Stage 3, we have maths learning leaders who are Year 11 pupils, usually 2 pupils who plan and deliver numeracy activities for Year 7s and 8s to do during form time under the guidance of a maths teacher. Activities included consolidating the use of all 4 operations. Key topics that pupils struggle with, like fractions, percentages, dividing decimals, negative numbers, as well as problem-solving questions. The majority of our Year 7s and 8s have their own Chromebooks and are able to solve set numerical problems from subscribed websites during form time as well. For Key Stage 4, pupils use MathsWatch, GCSE podcast, which has some great resources, and all Year 11s have access to the Pixel app, where they're able to do the daily numeracy challenge. All our pupils have their own individual login details for MathsWatch, My Maths, GCSE podcast, and Year 11s have the Pixel app as well. All pupils have an assessment grid on what questions they did not do well in and what they did well in following on from an end of term exam or test in maths, and they are able to identify what topics they need to revise further. They use this as part of their revision. So during form time, they use this to help them identify what topics that they need to hone in on. This is a really good way of promoting independence and taking ownership of their learning. We do the same for Key Stage 3. They also have an assessment grid following on from a summative assessment. So reflect on how your school uses form time. Could what I have shared with you be something that could happen in your school? All teachers have access to MathsWatch, My Maths, which has some good whole school numeracy activities, and Pixel. There are plenty of resources on this website, not just for maths, but for other subjects, similar to GCSE podcast. MathsWatch has podcasts on most topics in maths, with worked examples and questions for you to try out. To support teachers further, all maths teachers are attached to a department to support where necessary. In the past, the maths teacher, known as a maths champion, have worked closely with a teacher from another department by planning a cross-curricular project. For example, we have analysed data in math lessons from fitness tests pupils undertook in their PE lessons. During enrichment day, this is when pupils are off timetable and usually takes place in the summer. We have planned numeracy activities for pupils to do relating to the theme of that enrichment day. It could involve budgeting or the planning of the event, etc. So, do cross-curricular projects take place between maths and other departments in your school? If so, please share some examples with us using the question and answer section. All schemes of work have a section that includes numeracy similar to literacy, SMSE, careers, etc. And subjects are able to identify, where applicable, the mathematical element of the unit of work. It is also key that pupils can transfer skills from one subject to another. For example, why is it that pupils have a mental block when trying to draw a Venn diagram in English, but are able to draw one in maths? It is also worth checking pupils' prior knowledge before moving on and address those mathematical concepts in your lesson if this is hindering progress. Think back to the SSAT quote I mentioned earlier with you about applying skills and knowledge to solve problems in a whole range of contexts across school life. On the main PowerPoint that I will share, you will see part of a physics scheme of work. Here, pupils are expected to calculate energy transferred in a reaction and be able to analyze data. I've also shared part of a geography scheme of work where pupils will be expected to identify trends. You will see again on the main PowerPoint that I've shared part of the geography lesson where the teachers planned interpreting graphs within a geography context. Now, if pupils were not able to interpret graphs, then this would have hindered their learning. The learning objective for this lesson was to know the different types of graphs used and describe patterns within a geography context, But what happens if the pupil is unable to recall how to interpret or draw graphs? By planning a start activity and having a rich discussion about graphs at the start will help learning progress much further. In this geography lesson, pupils looked at scatter diagrams, line graphs, and were expected to interpret pie charts. We have worked with departments where we would do start activities in our maths lessons on a topic knowing pupils needed to know that topic for a particular subject. This is where the role of the maths champion is important. It is crucial that departments talk to each other where possible. Have allocated time to allow collaborative planning sessions to take place, say in staff meetings, inset days, department meetings, etc. So, are there any teachers other than maths teachers that would like to share with us how they have included numeracy in their lessons? Please share your thoughts using the question and answer section. We have a house system at Denby and run maths competitions through this, encouraging all pupils to get involved. In the recent competition, it was interesting to see how pupils were using their math skills to estimate the height of a tree overlooking our sports field. So, there was a variety of events taking place that particular week. And it was good to see the number of pupils participating, getting involved. At Denby, we participate in National Careers Week, plus we discuss careers throughout the year where necessary, but there is 1 month where we all highlight careers involving maths and discuss this in our lessons. We really emphasize why maths is a core subject and where you will need it in everyday life. Yes, I hear people say to me, "Miss, I am never going to solve an equation when I grow up," etc., etc. But I do agree with them on some occasions. However, I do point out maths teaches you analytical skills, think logically, be a problem solver, amongst other things, without them even realizing it. So employers always look to see if, in terms of qualifications, have they passed their maths and English. We are quite fortunate at Denby that we are able to offer allowances to our staff to develop their leadership under the guidance of a member of the senior leadership team. This is a fairly recent initiative, and one of our maths teachers has some responsibility for aspects of numeracy across the curriculum, together with the use of technology. He's on an MPQML course and has decided to make his project based around numeracy across the curriculum with the use of technology. So he has been working with the lead from the geography and science departments, supporting them with teaching and learning, and they then in turn have shared the good practice with their respective departments. Looking at consistent teaching practices, where applicable, including graph drawing, where a number of science teachers have mentioned that pupils struggle with this topic, creating a SALT poster relating to graphs, which I'll explain in a moment, and providing CPD for staff at the school, in particular to new staff who are unfamiliar with using the websites that we have subscribed to. This is a question for a head teacher or a deputy or a CEO. Could development allowances be something you could offer to your staff? Please share your thoughts. Now, on the main PowerPoint that I am referring to that's attached to this presentation, the units of work in science where pupils are expected to know certain maths topics. Now, rearranging formula is one topic. So in preparation for the science lessons, the maths champion and the science lead created resources which were shared across both departments. In our maths lessons, we looked at rearranging science formulas and as well as maths formulas that pupils will need in their science lessons, so that pupils will be familiar and understand that they can transfer skills from one subject to another. Now, there's a bank of these resources relating to the crossover topics and are accessible on a Denby Google Drive that has been created for all subjects with respect to numeracy across the curriculum. Again, on slide 24, you will see the SALT poster more clearly that I was referring to earlier. This was created collaboratively by the Maths Champion and Science Lead to ensure all pupils plotted graphs in a consistent manner across the school by considering the scale, drawing the axes, labeling the axes, and ensuring that there is a title. This will be shared right across the school. There is a drive, it's a working document with a folder for all subjects, and we have shared useful websites that links maths to their subjects, any CPD sessions that take place, any meetings between maths champions and the attached department, any collaborative planning session notes, any pupils' work, schemes of learning, identifying where math skills are needed, and general resources. On the main PowerPoint, I've shared the useful websites for art as an example. Now, this is a question for non-maths teachers. Please share your experiences on any collaborative work you have done with your maths department in your school. Please comment using the question and answer section. At Denby, we like to get involved in whole school events as well as national events. We participate in the usual events, including masterclasses, maths challenges, and enjoyed taking part in World Maths Day. Recently, we all celebrated Pi Day on February the 13th of March. And during a staff meeting, all teachers were given time to plan either a starter, main activity, or plenary involving Pi within their subjects. Math champions were there to support the departments that they're attached to. Teachers bought their Chromebooks and were able to access the drive, and they looked at the recommended websites. Some of the department meeting the following week was used to finalise the Pi Day activity for Friday the 13th. It was a lovely way to celebrate Pi Day. As I bring this presentation to an end, I'd like to summarise some of the key points I've mentioned. To develop a maths culture, include it in your school improvement plan. That way you will know you will be reviewing this on a regular basis. Have maths champions and plan in collaborative planning sessions so good practices can be shared during staff meetings, department meetings, inset days. Create a shared learning platform so all teachers can see what numeracy skills pupils need across the curriculum. Look for numeracy in lessons where applicable during lesson walks, book looks, and lesson observations. Participate in whole school and national events, raising the profile of how important maths is and why you need it. Discuss careers and where maths will take you. Why is maths a core subject? Why is it important that you pass your maths and English? And finally, all teachers are teachers of numeracy and literacy. I would like to go through some of your responses and have an activity for you to do, which I will explain next.
A lot of things to think about, a lot of things to ponder. Now, numeracy across the curriculum, what Razna wants you to think about before I bring her on to the online stage is some reflection time just on what she's actually discussed. There's a lot to digest there. So have to think about these two questions. This is the first one. So what are the key barriers to implementing numeracy across the curriculum in your own school? And from a point of view as a subject teacher, as a team leader, or as a senior leader. She's asked just a couple of points from your perspective, and in the Q&A, if you can start thinking about what you would want to say about what the barriers are regarding implementing numeracy across the curriculum. Just going to give you just a couple of seconds just to ponder on that, just so you've got that. So what are the key barriers as a subject leader, team leader, or as a senior leader? And this is irrespective of which subject you're from or your background is in. Within your school setting, what are the barriers? And just think about what you think are the key things that are stopping you doing that. The second point on there, so intended action. So from today's shared practices, what one key aspect of numeracy across the curriculum will you implement in your school for the new academic year? So having thought about what Razna said during her presentation and thinking about your barriers within your school setting, what would you want to action as you move away from today in terms of within your schools? I will come back to these questions later as well. This conversation is happening, will be happening on Twitter as well. So at Chiltern TSA, if you are on Twitter, make sure you follow us, use the hashtag LDeduchat, where this conversation will be alive during and after the session as well. So I'd like to welcome Razna Choudhury to the stage. She's been a massive proponent within Denby High School in terms of what she's achieved in terms of creating a maths culture, but also across our trust as well, so Chiltern Learning Trust, in terms of the Director of Maths. Come say hi to all the people that are joining us today, Razna.
Morning everyone, thank you for joining my session. I hope you enjoyed it, and I did want to make it more interactive, which is why I've asked questions, and it's great that everyone's responding. Thank you for that. So I'm just picking up a few of the threads. One issue that we also faced was the alignment of the programs of study. This has been an issue, especially with science. And again, it was key that we work closely with the science department. Maths and English programs of study were written first, and you're right, it didn't align with the science. What we found was that there were topics in science that were considered low-level skills, whereas in maths they were considered high-level skills. So whoever wrote it, they didn't really take that into consideration. So it was left to us poor teachers to align and work as best as possible with the different departments. So in those particular cases, we worked with the departments, and again, as I've mentioned, the maths champions play a key role in terms of working with the other departments. So if we know that there was a topic, say in science, where pupils needed a particular skill, say, I don't know, working out percentage increase, we will try and do a starter activity maybe a week beforehand so that pupils are then prepared, try and do some science questions in our maths lessons so pupils are then familiar.
Thank you, Razna. Razna, is your camera working? That's better. That's better. As much as your voice is lovely, we want to see you too. Anything else has caught your eye on the question?
Yeah, the assemblies. A few teachers have mentioned, what to include primary schools. I'm talking from a secondary point of view. However, just look at what happens in a daily life. For primary schools, what do they encounter? I would link the maths there. Just keep it simple. Just make pupils aware of why they need maths in everyday life. Why do they need to learn how to read, write? Well, it's the same with maths. Just that importance of mathematics from an early age, and so that when they come to secondary school, they know that I need to pass maths because it will open up so many doors. So having that attitude, that positive attitude towards mathematics, is crucial. It's okay for people to say that, oh, I'm not really good at maths, but you won't hear people say I'm rubbish at I can't read or write. So it's just changing the mindset and just making maths more positive. Definitely.
I think it's just about creating that ethos, isn't it?
Absolutely.
In terms of raising.
I know some people have mentioned about just trying to read everything with regards to what's happening at form time activities. At Denby, it's very structured in the sense that we have a set of programs of different activities that takes place. It's just building that routine. Yes, there is quite a lot of messages that you have to read out. I've been a form tutor for many years, and it is just prioritizing. I use my students in my form to then take a leadership. So it could be, if it's just general messages, they can read out the messages. So I'm then able to do other aspects of a form tutor. So yeah, it's just managing the time. There's
been quite a lot that have come up to do with in terms of the barriers that you talked about, that you asked. Time seems to be one of those, and I think that's time in general. So they're not overly specific in terms of, but I think from the thread of the other sessions we've had, to collaborate effectively, you need time, and you've got to be, and it's got to be manageable, because you've also got to think about workload, which I fully appreciate that. So in terms of managing the time, this is where management needs to come in. They need to plan and allow collaborative planning time to take place in staff meetings, department time. Why not have half the inset day looking at schemes of work where you can write in, you're able to include numeracy, have someone from the maths department go into another department and support the teaching and learning. So definitely, I think that needs to come from top down. Absolutely. I think Mary touched on that in our last session, where she said, there's only so much that we can do. And if we add more to our plate, something needs to come off our plate. Quite often we say, oh, let's collaborate. And is there time to do that, as much as we all want to do that? Just sort of referencing that. So just going to add to, as in our current situation on that, what could leaders be doing now to make sure that we're using that time effectively? And I think Adrian and Julian mentioned that in the first of our sessions in terms of how to use our time off effectively. When we're working from home, we can start looking at our schemes of work, start thinking in terms of what work we're setting pupils now remotely. Try and include some maths element to this. Recommend some websites to pupils and link it to your subject. You can do some flip learning.
So before you start a topic, get pupils to do some research on that topic, and then link it where, if possible, to real life, and then look at where the maths element is.
So it's just being a little bit smarter, because I think if we all do that and we got the time to do it, I think it actually lessens the load.
Yeah, and it could be for, say, as we're all working from home, maybe use one afternoon where we start revising our schemes of work. So if you have because I remember I looked at one of the comments that it's difficult to include numeracy in the schemes of work. Well, start looking at your schemes of work now. This is what we do every summer. Once our year 11s leave, we have that year 11 time, so we can then look at our schemes of work. We also have leading teaching and learning time, which is an hour after school, out of our directed time, where it's up to us in terms of what we need to focus on as a department. So we will then look at our schemes of work. How can we improve? Is there any collaborative work, consistent methods? And I know somebody mentioned that the consistency and in terms of that, one method, it doesn't fit all. I agree with that. I totally agree with that. But it's just making sure that if, say, the science teacher is explaining rearranging formula using the speed one, using the triangle, whereas in maths they're just writing the formula and rearranging it, just be aware that there are two different methods. In my maths lessons, I encourage pupils to use different methods, whatever suits them. But I'll say, this is the way I do. But if you've got another way and it works for you and you're comfortable and you understand it, great, use it.
Mm.
I'd never sort of say, no, don't use, it's got to be this method. Definitely. I encourage, there's different ways. When you look at the AO2, AO3 types of questions in maths, there's a variety of ways of solving the problem.
Anything else that's come through there? There's quite a lot coming through now.
I was saying, no, there's not many questions. So do the whole department. Yeah, we did curriculum planning, absolutely.
Just going on there in terms of... Yeah,
you're right, in terms of its time, meeting up with other departments. But as I say, that needs to be planned in.
Yeah.
And once you've got that, and at first it does seem daunting that, oh my God, there's a lot of work, but you'll realize it makes life so much easier. If you've planned a lesson, say, I don't know, say in geography, like how I gave you that example, and you've planned, you've spent hours, but you've made that assumption that pupils can interpret or draw graphs. You've planned that lesson and then not realizing, well, actually, they can't, or they've forgotten. Mm. So it's worth just checking that prior learning. What can pupils recall, or can they then apply? And transferring skills from one subject to another is crucial. A lot of the students think mathematics stays within the maths lessons. And you have to point out, well, actually, in our maths lesson, we make that cross-curricular link that actually you'll need it in this subject. If you're doing conversion, you might use it in design and technology. So yeah, just making those links is crucial.
I know that we've touched on this, and again, it goes back to obviously there's a lot of barriers or comments coming up to do with barriers, which is what we asked for. So in terms of time is one, which you discussed, the next thing that seems to be a thread there is that there's two aspects to this, is that one, how do you improve the priority level in other subject areas? So getting engagement from other subject areas. How did you manage that at Denby?
Once you've got that allocated time, it's there. So there is kind of no excuses. So if we have that allocated time, you're meeting up with that department and then the follow-up. And this is where the role of the team leader is crucial, because they need to also be leading by example, encouraging and supporting their staff member. And that staff member must feel that there is a support network for them, is available for, to them. So they have the resources. If you do have some people say, no, that's it, it's just too much work. Work with them if needs be. Either the team leader or a maths teacher can go into the lesson and support as and when necessary. And I'm not asking you to do a whole lesson, 5 minutes, make it manageable and doable. And I think once you've overcome that first stage of actually, I've done a little bit, then you can build on it and then reflect back what worked, what didn't work, how relevant is it, make it relevant, ask the pupils what they thought. When I do a lesson and I'm thinking, I wonder how that lesson, I ask the students, what did you think? Tell me, how would you like me to plan the lesson? What works for you? And you be surprised how insightful pupils can be.
Absolutely. I think sometimes we just can be a little bit nervous. I think some people are talking about confidence and talking about subject knowledge.
There's a very good website like Maths Watch, I do highly recommend, and GCSE podcast, so if you're not sure how to, I don't know, say work out or draw a pie chart, play the video, ask the pupils, right, can somebody explain to the class how you would draw a pie chart? Let the pupils be facilitate some of the learning.
I mean, one of the things that came through with all the Ofsted deep dives and the new framework that we've been discussing on these sessions, and we've got the maths ones coming up with Marcus Ray on Friday, is that one of the key things that they ask to all staff is that what subject specific CPD are you offering? And there's a big drive towards building the confidence and knowledge base of our staff. So that's something that we should be incorporating within our own CPD rather than whole school.
And you can do that in your directed time. So at Denby, every Wednesday, there's either, again, for us, the use of ICT, the IT is fairly new for some people. So, there's been CPD sessions taking place regularly. You can do the same with maths. Have math sessions, and we do run math sessions. As I was mentioning, the teacher who's on the MPQML project, one thing he has been doing is supporting teachers who are not familiar with using new websites, and there is a maths champion linked to every department. So if somebody's not 100% sure on how to teach, subject knowledge needs to improve, there is always somewhere there. It's just making sure your maths department is supportive, but they're also being supported as well, because you don't want to increase their workload, make it manageable, and this is where management needs to come in.
And I also want to give a notice, hasn't been mentioned there, but I've had emails to do with this. Support staff seem to be sometimes neglected in this whole process in terms of their development. They get quite specific things to do with educational behaviour and needs, etc. So things that are very pertinent to their job, absolutely, but quite often their confidence also lacks within numeracy and within maths. And how do they incorporate some of that skill set within when they're dealing with our most vulnerable students?
Absolutely, and that's why I shared that display board, just to show, well, actually, our support team, very strong. They will go into other departments and they will see the mathematics, and then sharing that, well, this is what's happening. The maths, all the websites that teachers subscribe includes all the support staff, so they're treated just like a normal class teacher. They participate in all the CPD sessions that take place. That's something I think is a really important thing to move forward with, is not to neglect your support staff that are actually dealing with some of our most vulnerable students. We need to skill those people up as well where they need it, in the same way as a classroom teacher. To somebody mentioning Corbett Maths, there are free websites. We do use free websites as well. We've got Maths Genie. Corbett Maths is very good, especially for the differentiated work. Absolutely. So there's a whole host. I think it'd be quite good after the session on Twitter, when you go live on Twitter, to actually just tweet out some links to some of the websites that you actually like and use and that you have confidence in. That'd be quite good for people to see as well. So just a nod. Yeah, and I've agreed. Maths Watch is expensive, but schools, if they can afford it, we've used it for years, and it's, we find it really useful. My Maths was the one that we did initially start using. I still use My Maths. I think that still has a place. But yes, it is expensive, but whoever holds purse strings, go and see them. As I said, I think it's got to be a whole school ethos going from top to down, so that will release time and money and maths is important. So why are we not spending money on maths? And obviously we're both biased, aren't we? Absolutely. Any other questions there? Just having a look through. Anything else that's caught? There's a lot of people sharing stuff, which is really good to see. I just want to thank all the people in the Q&A that are actually sharing their resources. And I think it'd be really, really good. Loads of resources out there. Lots of resources linked to subjects as well. I know somebody had mentioned that, in terms of, well, where's the maths in my subject? You would be surprised as to how much maths there are in a subject when you start researching it and looking at your subject. And we created that Google Drive, so we found resources linked to every subject, and teachers are able to access this drive. So yeah, there is a lot out there. Any other questions there that you can see that have come up? Yeah, it's just a lack of confidence. Non-maths teachers sometimes have, but again, work with someone. We have worked teachers who haven't passed their skills test that used to, the old school skills test for maths. So it's just, working with teachers, maths teachers is the way forward. Yeah. Or just working with people in your department.
Just while you're having a look through the questions, Raz, I'm just going to just remind people. So if you go on Twitter now at Chiltern TSA and keep these conversations going, share your resources, share your ideas. It'd be really, really good to see. Razna will be on there after the session. I'm just going to give you a nods up in terms of if anybody wants to ask a question live, can you start putting your hands up if anybody's brave enough to do that today? And if we've got time, we're literally going to have time for 1 or 2 questions at the most.
But Rapinder's just asked a question I would like to answer. The team teaching one, absolutely. If your timetable allows, then what we've done at Denby is try and team up an NQT who tend to have a little bit less, more time in terms of their PPA to then observe the more experienced teachers. And that's also about, other NQTs across the school can come in and watch other teachers teach. Absolutely. Everyone's welcome. Team teaching is really good. And collaborative planning, that always takes place. Sharing resources. Have like 10 minutes of department time where you're looking at, okay, this is what we're going to teach. How do we go about this? And explore the different methods. Know that the more able students will, would look at more advanced methods compared to your low ability, the use of manipulatives.
So there's a question there from Hayley. How do you overcome the language differences across, I know you touched that on your presentation, subject, for example, math, science and geography, average and estimation are some examples, I think, which are more specific in maths, but more broad in other subjects. So when we have quite specific key terms that we use in maths that are quite descriptive within maths, but then they're more general when you go to other subjects, how did you overcome that within your environment at Denby?
Right, you get all the teachers involved. All the teachers, so say the geography teacher, they have a meaning of a particular word. They then need to know, we've got those posters. So those posters where we've looked at the most common keywords that pupils use in the classroom, when that topic is being discussed and those keywords are then mentioned, the teacher then makes a point of highlighting, this is what it means in geography and this is what it means in math, just making pupils be aware of the different meanings. You need to look at your schemes of work, because in your schemes of work, look at the numeracy elements and you can then mention, well, actually, discuss the meaning of the keywords.
So this is partly to do with raising the skill set of other staff to do with numeracy and maths as well. So raising the whole game in terms of, so
this is what it's the whole school. Get the whole school involved, highlight events, raise the profile of numeracy across the curriculum, definitely.
Any other questions that you've seen there? I'm just flicking through them at the moment. I think it all comes back down to time and management. There's a lot of time, and everything that is being suggested is not being enough time to do actually what we want to do as a collaborative approach, or coaching staff, training staff, improving skill, confidence levels. So I think there's a very clear message to leaders out there, if you are here or you watch it on YouTube later, and we'll discuss it on Twitter later as well, is that if you want to have a maths culture, a numeracy culture within your school, which is actually something that shouldn't be a choice, this should be a must. You've got to have numeracy running as alongside literacy within your schools. If you want that to happen, you've got to give people the time and the resource to be able to do it.
Absolutely, and it's in the programs of study as well. The Key Stage 3, Key Stage 4 programs of study for maths clearly states that it should be taking place across the whole curriculum.
Yeah.
Our leaders should all be on board.
Any other questions there just before we start wrapping up?
Let me mention in the STEM, we do STEM as well, that's cross-curricular, having joint projects, that's really good. Barriers is time, and class sizes in PE, that's something for the school to decide on.
Yeah.
Mapping across, the mapping across one, as I say, the maths and English scheme of the program of study was written first, and all the other subjects came afterwards, so it's a shame there was a golden opportunity that was missed there.
I mean, somebody's just mentioned there, Amanda, I think we've touched on it kind of. Is there a document that lists and highlights the overlaps of vocab terms, Key Stage 1, 2, 3 and 4? Your examples included product and expand. There must be hundreds.
Yeah, so what we did was we we approached all the departments and asked them, what are the keywords that you use? We actually did that in a staff meeting, from what I remember, a few years back. And we listed all the keywords, the whole department, all members were there. And it was a case of just brainstorming. They then went away, refined it, identified more keywords, and then selecting the most prominent ones. So there are lots of keywords, but it's just identifying the ones that I use the most.
Absolutely. And also you can look at the GCSE specification as well, produced by all the exam boards, and there's a list of terms on there, and just get other subjects to identify the exam keywords as well, and make sure at least those ones are clear if you're looking for a starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of resources out there. You'd be surprised. Start researching and then you'll be overwhelmed.
I'm going to start wrapping. There's still quite a lot on there. I don't know if you want to start working your way through those, Razna. I'd just like to say a massive thank you to you, Razna. That's an immense effort putting all of that together, and there's a lot to discuss, I know that. And it's been really, really insightful, and I think it's a good reminder in terms of some of the really good practices that sometimes we know, but we don't have the momentum sometimes to carry them forward. And it's really opened up a discussion, I hope, with leadership in terms of raising the profile of numeracy and maths within their schools. So thank you. And if you want to say a bye to everybody that's attended.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I hope you enjoyed it, and food for thought. Thank you.
I'm just going to quickly just remind you of those questions. I know they're pretty much embedded in your minds in terms of, to be fair, we all want to collaborate. We often don't have the opportunity to do that. What we had was, think about it from your position in terms of subject leader, subject teacher, team leader, senior leader. What barriers are you facing to actually implement numeracy across the curriculum in your school? As I said, this discussion will continue on Twitter at Chiltern TSA using the hashtag LDeduchat. And then it'd be really, really, really good to see what you are planning to put in place, or what you may already have started to put in place within your schools, and tell us what's worked for you. It'd be really good to share that practice, because I think we're all looking for that golden nugget on how do we make these things work within our school settings. So please tell us about what you have tried to do and what has worked for you, and what your barriers have been, and actually what would you need to overcome those barriers. How do we create more time? What do we lose? What do we include? Make sure that you join us on Twitter. I'm just going to remind you what we've got coming up. We've got tomorrow, we've got Dr. Emma Kell. We've got Dr. Emma Kell, who'll be looking at wellbeing and workload issues when we're working from home, distant learning, and everything that's happening to us at the moment. So that's going to be a fascinating session tomorrow. And then we're going straight back into our final of our deep dive series with, not final, sorry, we have got one more after that, of our core subjects. So we've got maths deep dives with Marcus Ray. Follow us on at Chiltern TSA. Use the hashtag LDeduchat. We would love to see you online continuing this discussion. Make sure you subscribe, because we have so much coming up. And I know how busy you can be in the mornings, and I don't want you to miss out on anything. So this is me, Arv Cowshaw, signing off for another session of hashtag LDeduchat, leadership development in education online.